A customer came in reporting that the check engine light was on. To investigate, I connected a scan tool to the vehicle and retrieved the diagnostic trouble code P0302, cylinder 2 misfire detected. Misfire codes like this typically indicate an issue with the ignition system, fuel delivery, or cylinder compression. Using the scan tool, I monitored live data while the engine was idling. I noticed that the misfire counts on cylinder number 2 steadily increased, confirming that the issue was isolated to that cylinder. My next step was to inspect the ignition coil wiring harness and connector for cylinder number 2. I checked for visible damage, loose connections, or corrosion, but found no concerns. To dig deeper, I used a multimeter to test for voltage and ground at the ignition coil connector. Both were present, confirming that the electrical supply to the ignition coil was intact. I then used the multimeter to measure the resistance of the ignition coil itself. The measured resistance was not within the manufacturer's specifications, which indicated the ignition coil was faulty. While diagnosing the ignition system, I also removed the spark plugs for inspection. The spark plugs showed signs of excessive wear, which can contribute to misfires and poor engine performance. Since spark plugs are a critical part of the ignition system and they were due for replacement, I decided to replace them along with the ignition coil. To resolve the issue, I replaced the faulty ignition coil on cylinder number 2 and installed a new set of spark plugs. After completing the repairs, I cleared the fault codes using the scan tool and performed a road test to ensure the vehicle operated properly. The engine ran smoothly, the check engine light stayed off, and no fault codes returned. The ignition coil is essential for converting battery voltage into the high voltage needed to ignite the air-fuel mixture in the cylinder. When it fails, it can cause misfires, rough idling, and poor fuel economy. By replacing the defective ignition coil and worn spark plugs, I restored the engine's performance and resolved the customer's concern.